We gotta go to the bullpen. Welcome to the Highland Bullpen, the all-new podcast bringing America's pastime to Scotland's shores. It doesn't matter if you're a Hall of Famer heading for Cooperstown or you're fresh out of the minor leagues. This is the podcast for you.
Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of the Highland Bullpen. Alan here, just introducing the show whilst our erstwhile technological genius Richard is away getting his microphone and computer sorted out. He probably needs to get back to 1980s models, much as I've got sitting here in my house instead of trying all that newfangled stuff. So we'll chat through the season and what have you, and we'll see how things go.
Just before you crack on further, Alan, are you and Dave going to be okay tonight? It's just that I know that Boston and the Tigers are in the middle of a hot and heavy series over there. So is there an update from you guys? Are you going to be fisticuffs or are we best of friends?
Yeah, I could quite contentedly say I know the Tigers' place in this season's Major League Baseball standings. So I think I have to accept where things go, and given the last bullpen clash, which took place after our last podcast was against the White Sox, was a sweep. I don't think you need to guess who the sweep was for, but I think that was 27 runs to 6 for the good old Chicago, and almost half those runs were scored without reply in the last game at Comerica Park for the White Sox. So getting beat 13-0 at home can't have been a pleasant experience for the hometown fans. And yeah, the Tigers are somewhat struggling just now. When you look through the season, I find it quite interesting how we're not in great position. We've had 26 wins, 41 defeats. But when you actually look at it, those wins tend to come in the same series. So we beat Pittsburgh 2-0, the Twins 4-1. Baltimore we swept 3-0. So it almost seems to be we either sweep or get swept or get stuffed, might be another way of putting it in the Scottish vernacular. So I know the Red Sox aren't quite firing on all cylinders, but they're above 500. They won the first game last night, 5-2. I hope any Tigers fans who get over to Fenway Park enjoy the experience and see how things go. In terms of bullpen rivalry, I updated the bullpen league calculator today and had a quick look at that. And if I thought the Tigers being on something like 380, 390 as their percentage, I wish I hadn't gone as far as checking out how we do against you guys lot. I think I found that we've won 2 games in our 10 games we've already played against the bullpen. So that gives us a score of 200. Remarkably, the Mariners, who the Tigers have not yet played, are also on 200 in that particular league. Now the White Sox, and this is maybe slightly worrying for the White Sox, who seem to be chasing a wee bit to get up to the playoffs, but they're 11 wins out of 15 against us, having successfully 4-2 against the Red Sox, 5-1 against the Tigers. So yeah, the Red Sox are 11 out of 17, so both won 11 games. So there's a bit of a gulf, I think it's fair to say, developing between the bullpen. And I think bottom line is Richard and myself will always be quite happy to spend time with you guys and enjoy your company and perhaps cheer you on as you move into the further pastures in the season. But yeah, no, Tigers are struggling. We introduced the young guy Riley Green last week. Got a little bit of momentum, got a couple of wins there. scoring 14 runs against the Rangers in one game, then 7 the night after. So, yeah, things turned around quite well there. Quite sort of slightly bizarre. I mean, it's the bizarre nature of Major League Baseball. When you get different pitchers come in, you get momentum shifts. You get beat 7-0 one night, and then you win 14-7 the next day. Unfortunately, I was at Comerica Park, so we wouldn't have won on the away goals rule. Yeah, I don't know. I've said this before, but disappointing. I thought the Tigers last season looked like they were developing something and coming back, but they're under 400. I've not done my history check to see when we've been under 400 in previous seasons, but it is a little bit concerning how they've got there. This famed Tigers rebuild does not seem to be happening the way that we may have hoped or wished for. So, Dave Senior, Yorkshire Dave, the Red Sox, how are you feeling about their form these days?
I'm really happy, actually. Boston currently 6 games over 500, which is the first time they've been 6 over 500 this season. So it's 37, a record of 37 wins, 31 losses. They've moved to 3rd in the AL East, and they're in the wildcard spot. And just to put it in perspective, there's only, just having a look, there's only 7 teams in the American League that have a winning record, and 4 of them are in the AL East. The Yankees, incredible, aren't they? They've got 50 wins, and I heard somebody saying that they only need to, for the rest of the season, for 95 games to go, they only need to be just over 500 for the next 95 games, and they'll have 100 wins. So they look like the team to beat, and the Dodgers in the National League. Boston have been pretty good in the last few series, but things are going to get tougher for them. After the Tigers next 2 games, they go on the road to Cleveland and Toronto, which is both teams are over 500. But in July, and they run up to the All-Star break, they're going to be up against Tampa Bay 3 games, then the Yankees at Fenway for 4 games, then they're at Tampa for 4 games, and at the Yankees in the Bronx for 3. So we'll know a lot more. And after that, it's the All-Star break. So we'll know a lot more after those series. But they are doing pretty well, and they're doing well without some serious injury problems that they've had, especially in the rotation. So they've had to call up a couple of guys from the minors. The guy who was pitching last night, Josh Winkowski, who pitched an extremely good game. He's looking good. He's had 3 starts this year, and his record is 2-1. So there's definitely some positives. Kike Hernandez, who's the leadoff guy, he's been injured, but they brought up Jaron Duran, who played a little bit last season, but he's looking extremely good. Like last night, he's really quick, and he got on base a couple of times in the early innings last night, and scored runs both time. I think he's that quick that the Nesson commentator Dave O'Brien said he's coming in to score. In fact, he's already in the dugout. So he adds a different dimension. Trevor Story's a good base runner as well. So they're doing some different things, and they may have finally not exactly stumbled across a closer, but Tanner Houck is the guy who's getting the saves. And what was really hurting them in the early part of the season was the blown saves. They were getting into good winning positions, and they topped the league, and they've got 14 blown saves in this season. I think they had 2 in one game. I didn't even know that was possible. So you get to a save situation in the 7th or 8th innings, blow that, And then they must have got a lead back in the 8th and 9th. Somebody came in to save it in the 9th and blew that. So it makes a big difference. And it's well above 5 or 6 blown saves above the league average. So, if they'd have had a pretty seriously good closer, they might be significantly higher. But I'll take what's the position that we're in now and the way we're playing. So, looking forward to tonight's game. I might even stay up and watch it. I fell asleep last night because I've been out actually heading for the Leeds Rhinos event, 2 beers and midnight plus start. I think I saw the first inning, and then next thing you know, it's heads.
So what were the Rhinos doing at Headingley last night?
It was they haven't played for a while because there was a international game at the weekend. So they've got a new coach, and they're always doing some pretty good stuff for their members, their season ticket holders, which we are, so Lorraine and I. So we were invited to an event where you could ask questions of the Chief Executive Officer, Gary Hetherington, and their new coach, Rowan Smith. And it took place in the new stand, which overlooks the hospitality suite. I think it's the Howard Suite, overlooks the fantastic Headingley rugby ground. And on the other side, it overlooks the Headingley Test ground, where the third test against New Zealand will take place on Thursday. And it's a unique facility in the world, really, and it's fantastic. So look out for that on Thursday. I think BBC have highlights of the test, don't they? So yeah. But there's some certainly good weather forecast for Thursday. It was a really good event, but it went, and so I'll try and tune in tonight. There's not been too many UK friendly first pitch times recently. There was one on Sunday for the Red Sox, but that's been about it for a while.
Yeah, I think that tends to be a lot of 12-10 starts, aren't they? And the Tigers are heading on the road to Arizona after this, and then San Francisco. So
yeah, it's even worse for the West Coast road trips, isn't it?
Yeah, as a man who can fall asleep in the middle of the afternoon and get sunburnt in 16 degree centigrade temperature in Scotland, I don't have much chance for these game times. But I will keep working on it, and I'll wear suitably bright T-shirts so people don't realise that I'm sunburnt as well. But yeah, good. And we'll maybe the Rhinos as well. I think we'll maybe talk about that later in the season. We're hopefully heading there for the delayed Rugby League World Cup later this season, as well as we get back together and enjoy some sort of sporting events as well. But baseball fans might enjoy tuning in to the test match. Cricket, I was speaking to the American family recently, and they were asking me to explain a bit about cricket, and they asked me, interestingly, one of the things they said was, how many runs do they score in the game? And when I sort of discussed that, it was they were quite shocked. But whilst it's a similar game of a bat and ball and pitching and bowling, it is quite different in many ways. But baseball fans, I think, would enjoy it, especially watching Test cricket. Although it's a few days long, the games, that's your elite players playing there as well. So don't be afraid to tune in and try and pick up a wee bit of the red ball game there. And the White Sox, Dave, they managed to scrape through a series against the Tigers recently as well, and it seemed to be still middle of the road, really, aren't they? Are they gonna pull it back, get up to 500, and compete a wee bit here?
I think you will. I think there's really good grounds recently for a lot of improvement with the White Sox. We seem to have been having a little bit of a rivalry. It may have been one way with the Houston Astros in the last few years. They've knocked us out of the playoffs last year. They gave us a bit of a doing over down in Texas. during standard league games last year, and they became a bit of a barometer for the White Sox in terms of humbling us and just showing us that there's different levels. And we went to Houston this week, actually, just with a little bit of trepidation, which lived out in game one. Things were going quite close, 3 each, and then in one devastating inning late on, we lost 10 runs in the one half inning, which is, you guys know yourselves, people listening know, just you cannot afford to do that against any team, let alone the Astros. But again, as baseball is, we came back the next night and shut them out in their own ground, 7-0, and then played a really competitive 4-3 loss the next night. So there was a lot of, particularly, when you take one half inning out of it and you look at the 3 games, really close, and competing with a team who are definitely one of the best in the world. In terms of where that goes from now, again, you said, we came to Detroit, we won some more games. Again, one of those strange situations when you're looking at, pitchers dropping out the game and position players starting to pitch, which is always a little bit strange to see as someone new to the sport. But again, it was good to pick up those wins. We have not, the White Sox have not played many league games against the other 4 teams in our division. I think it's the least across MLB. So it's quite interesting, actually, over the next couple of weeks before, Dave mentioned the All-Star break, which is something we can talk about in coming weeks. We've actually got quite a lot of those important games to come. The Twins and the Guardians are sitting just above us. The Guardians are in second place, but I think that they're better than the Twins. We'll get 4 games against the Guardians, 7 against the Twins, and another 4 against Detroit, and that's all before the All-Star break. So that might redress the balance where we haven't faced many other AL Central teams. And on top of that, we've also got, which might be deemed some slightly easier games, we'll get 7 coming up in the next week against the Orioles and the Angels, who have started to falter after starting the season really well. So I'm hoping that by the All-Star break, I do think the White Sox are in contention for the division just now, but I really think they'll have stamped that, potentially even going top, if not, again, competing in amongst three of ourselves. But, the Guardians are facing off against the Twins over the next couple of nights, which is always good. Both teams can't win, so somebody's going to drop some ground. But it'll be really interesting. We've started to deploy an interesting technique in keeping the same first 4 batters in the last week, which is what the White Sox fans have been screaming out for months. And again, it seems to be the other 29 teams all do this, but Tony La Russa, the White Sox manager, really mixes things up. And once we've got this settled top of the order, we've been really batting quite well. And I think during June, I think we're 3rd or 4th across the MLB in terms of run score. Although, it's something I was talking to Dave about the other day, kind of run differential. I'm not sure. Dave, you picked up anything on that recently?
Yeah, I didn't want to be negative. It was interesting to hear what you were saying about, the White Sox, because looking at, they're only just 1 game under 500, aren't they? But I did notice that their run differential is minus 38. So one of the things that I've heard, I don't remember where I heard it, but I've heard people talking about looking at the run differential. And for instance, when Boston were quite, had a pretty poor start to the season, one of the things that you kept noticing was that even though they were sort of way under 500, they had a positive or run differential, which suggested that there might not be quite as bad, as the win-loss record would show. And I was just wondering, okay, you're around about 500, but you sort of minus 38 is conceding a lot of runs. Yeah, it's just this theory of mine is in its very early stages of development. But I just thought, is there anything in that? I mean, I know what you're saying just now is that they're getting a more settled lineup scoring more runs. One of the things that surprised me, I think the White Sox have had quite a lot of blown saves as well this season, despite the fact that they've got one of the best closers in the business in our Aussie pen, the slider, Mr. Hendricks. So what do you reckon to that, Dave? Is there anything in that?
Yeah, our friend, the Southside slider, as you mentioned, Liam Hendricks, he's currently injured.
That explains
which
it.
may explain. But again, up until then, his numbers were pretty solid.
Yeah.
But quite often as well, I think, again, someone that's new to baseball and realising at what point different pitchers are brought in, quite often the games have been lost well before the ninth. And we're quite heavily behind in those games you talk about with the run differential, we're perhaps 4 or 5 runs behind going into the 7th or 8th. And at that point, the manager must think, well, what's the point in tiring my star guy out? I save him for a meaningful occasion.
Yeah.
And it's, they tend to just pimp out another pitcher in those maybe 8th and 9th innings to give them some experience.
Or even I've seen them use positional players, haven't they, which, not always too sure whether that's a good thing or not, but I think you just have to accept that sometimes, if you're 10 down with 2 or 3 innings to go then, and your bullpen needs a rest, like we probably do, then they don't want to tire out their ace closer. That's interesting.
That's just to pick up. It's something that Alan and I were talking about offline. That's maybe saying offline is maybe the kind term for saying I was slagging him off. But during the game that he mentioned where the White Sox won 13-0, one of the position players came in, Castro, and it just so happened that he had the best ERA for the game, above all of his other pitchers that came before. You do see why managers want to go in that position. They look at the upcoming schedule and think, okay, I've got a doubleheader tomorrow. The day after that, we fly across the country, and we've got a game. We've got a game the night after that. You do want to preserve those arms. So you can see why they do it, although as fans, you can see why fans must perhaps just pack up and go when it gets to the 6th or 7th inning. So I'm not sure how you feel, Alan. Again, you've got that experience recently of being at the other end of that, of kind of suffering.
Yeah, I probably don't want to highlight this too much, but if we're concerned about the White Sox having a run differential of -38, what do you think the White Sox run differential is in their 6 games against the Tigers this year?
Plus 21.
We're going to get a guess from Yorkshire.
Well, I'm not being keeping an eye on that, but
6 games.
So I'm going to say 30.
32.
32.
So, if you didn't get to play the Tigers, your run differential would be -70. What I think I'm interested in is I see the logic in looking at that. It's almost like when you're looking at a football league table, and after 7 games, you have your Liverpool and Man City's equal with Aston Villa, let's say. But Liverpool and Man City have been winning every game 3-0, and Villa have been scraping through. So you know what's going to happen there. How similar is that then to baseball, given what Dave was talking about there, that you suddenly throw in different pitchers, you sort of lose interest, not lose interest, but you probably run differential is not a factor in deciding the league, unlike goal difference would be. And it doesn't, because you play every day, it doesn't seem to affect you that you lose 7-0 one day and have to wait another week to make amends. Yeah,
I mean, you have to look behind the numbers a little bit, don't you? For instance, Boston, they did win a game 16. Sorry, remind you, Dave, I think it was against the White Sox, wasn't it? Something like 16-2 or 16-3. But so that obviously skews the differential a bit. But they had lost a game early in the season by a similar margin, so tend to cancel each other out. So I think there's something in it, but wouldn't sort of as I say, it'll take a bit more developing. I think that on the subject of saves, it is quite interesting because there is a definition for save, so you don't come to a save opportunity until it's the lead is 3 runs or less. I think that's right, isn't it? So if if your closer comes in and you're closing out the 9th inning, the last inning of the game, and your team is ahead 4-0, you won't get a save.
Yep.
If if you close out the game and you win the game 4-0, 4-1, 4-2, or 4-3. So there are, they call them save opportunities, don't they? So that's when you're pretty much guaranteed that if your ace closer is healthy, reasonably rested, he will come in, because it's not every night you're going to be in that save situation. In fact, we're listening to that Nesson guy in there, Dennis Eckersley. You just have to listen to this guy. He's got a whole new language of his own. There's a guy on Twitter who's called the Ectionary, and he just sort of tweets phrases and words. But he was one of the greatest closers of all time, and he was sort of joking, saying that he liked to see the game get within 3 runs, so he'd get in with a save opportunity a little bit to boost his his own personal record. It was joking, but players like that, don't they? They call them high leverage innings, don't they? And there's some guys thrive on that, and it looks like this Tanner Houck for the Red Sox is one of those guys. You can see it in his eyes and his face that he means business, and they thrive on this high pressure situation. Dave.
It's just quite funny, just to tie in with what we've all been discussing there, and bringing Alan's point back a wee bit. So the White Sox and the Red Sox have faced each other 6 times this season already. The White Sox went to Boston and swept, and then Boston won the series in Chicago 2-1. So think about that for a minute. So White Sox 4, Boston 2. What was the run score, the aggregate runs over the 6 games?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Red Sox scored more runs, because they scored 16 twice in that 3-game series, didn't they? So I would imagine that Red Sox were probably ahead
substantially, almost twice as much. So really? 38-22.
Wow.
And that was coming out as losers across the game. So it's just, again, it's something we speak about all the time. It's a game for statisticians. There's always an angle in there to talk about.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you look at last night's game, Alan, and the final score was Detroit 2, Boston 5, but Detroit actually out-hit Boston, so they had 10 hits to Boston's 9, and just as it has been in recent games, Red Sox scored a few they scored all their runs in the first 5 innings, and just getting that Jaron Duran getting on base, moving him up, stealing bases, walks. They help. They won't count as a hit, obviously, but it's a guy on base, and sacrifice fly, something like that. I don't think you get a hit for that. You might get an RBI, don't you? But you wouldn't get a hit. So it's that's partly why we love the game, isn't it? We're all a bit number freaks, aren't we? Probably something to do with the jobs we have. But
I think it's. I mean, not so much maybe watching English football, but certainly watching Scottish football, where it's fairly predictable what happens in a league season. I think looking at the results and the stats in baseball is fantastic, because Dave Jr. was talking about the Astros there, and I know Richard's struggling to join us just now, but when you look at the Mariners, have had a couple of series with the Astros this season and have won them both. When you look at the Mariners over the season, they're struggling, but yeah, the Astros, other than the Yankees, are really the top team in the league. So a poor team can go and actually do that. And then the Mariners are just coming off a 4-1 pumping in the series from the Angels. So there's a lot that goes on that doesn't make an awful lot of sense, and you can tune into a game just not knowing what's going to happen. And obviously you can tune in and see your team win when you don't expect to. So so no, interesting.
It's great.
It's interesting stuff. Yeah, Dave.
Sorry, I'll just before we move on, it was just one other point. I'm sure the last time I checked, only a couple of days ago, but I think the Yankees had only dropped 2 series all year.
Right.
One was to the White Sox, who at the time were really poor, and the other was to the Orioles, who I think are the whipping boys of that division. And it's just absolutely wild that these types of things can happen. You can flick on the scores in the morning, particularly as a UK fan with those late first pitches, and see, the Orioles have took down the Yankees, or the Tigers have went to Houston and won. It's a wonderful game, always full of surprises.
Yeah. And one of the big things we love, obviously, about baseball is when we're watching it, don't see them often enough. Sometimes at home runs, and the pleasure that brings you in both seeing your team score a home run, but it's also bringing pleasure to people in the audience and the crowd. I know there's some stuff you wanted to chat about and ask us about in that as well, Dave.
Yes, I'm not sure if you guys caught the story at all. It was covered in quite a few different North American news outlets about one of the Astros hitters. So he'd been called up just recently. So this was only his 6th major league game. JJ Matievich. I have to say though, we're all aware of our own club's feeder systems. I know Alan follows theirs, Detroit's, quite closely. I know that I'm aware of the White Sox ones, but one of the Houston Astros feeder teams in the minor leagues is called the Sugar Land Space Cowboys, which is quite something.
They deserve an award for that in itself.
But JJ came up from the Sugar Land Space Cowboys over the last week, and it was his 6th game against the White Sox, and it was the Astros' 4-3 win just 2 nights ago. A game featured on ESPN. So again, that goes out nationwide across America. And JJ had his first hit, and reasonably rare, but his first hit was also his first home run. So again, it's quite special. Hits can come in all shapes and sizes, but for it to come as a home run was quite special. And I was going to say a young 16-year-old, but I'm not sure if you get many old 16-year-olds.
Most of them tend to be the same sort of age.
Yeah. So a 16-year-old by the name of Rylan Freeman was sitting in the crowd and caught the ball. As a little bit of a side story, he's a pitcher actually in his local high school. So he does have a little bit of baseball heritage. So as you guys are aware, and again, for those of you listening that aren't kind of too familiar with it, I think when you have these special occasions in baseball, as Alan and Dave have mentioned today, quite often, young fans, old fans, if they catch a foul ball or a home run ball, it's quite a memento, quite a souvenir to take home and keep just to remind you of a special occasion. However, it's quite commonplace for people that have maybe hit their first hit or a significant number of home runs or these types of things to ask for the ball back from the crowd. And it's at that point where a little bit of negotiation takes place, or the fan asks for maybe a photo opportunity with their favourite player. Again, just to make these things a little bit more palatable for the fan, losing what's perhaps quite it could potentially be an expensive or a valuable memento. So this fan in particular, the Houston, national TV covered it throughout the game. They kept coming back inning after inning after inning. And this kid, he really should have been involved in the negotiations for MLB during the whole lockdown during December and January, because he kept turning back offer after offer. So initially he wanted the Houston Astros kind of star pitcher, Justin Verlander. Yep. And again, you can see the interest. If he's a pitcher at high school, that's his hero. He asked if he can get a signed jersey, and he was told no. So, so he said, well, I'm keeping the ball then. And they came back and said to him, right, what else can we get you? And he said, well, can I get it's one of the Astros outfielders, I think, Gurriel. Can I have a signed jersey from him? Can I have a signed jersey from him? No. And he said, well, I'll keep the ball. So they kept coming back. The TV coverage was covering this constantly throughout the night, and it was being tweeted. Everybody had their opinion nationwide, starting to watch this. So it turned out that the Astros finally agreed a deal with them where he could get 6 tickets to games and 6 tickets to watch batting practices as well as a Jose Altuve signed ball. So they finally agreed to that, and the fallout, because it made sort of national coverage, Justin Verlander after the game said, of course I'll sign a jersey for you. That's no problem at all. So it took a little bit of coverage, but what it's done is it's really split a lot of opinion amongst baseball fans to say, well, was he within his rights to keep that ball? Or should he just have bowed to whatever pressure the Astros wanted, kind of placed on him, given that the importance of this ball to Matejevich, the boy who hit his home run. But it's quite an interesting debate. But it's quite, fair play to the kid for sticking it out and saying, no, this is what I want. This is what, otherwise I'm going home with the ball. So I'm not sure what you guys think about that. If it had been yourselves.
I remember something going back a few years to when Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa were racing to go to beat the home run in a season record, to get it over 60 odd or whatever it was. This would have been late 90s, I think, 98, 97, 98, something like that. And they were speculating then whoever caught the ball would have a fantastic negotiating power, and they were speculating about what they might demand in a trade. I don't think there's any doubt that the fan is almost obligated to return the ball to the player if it's a special occasion. But I'm pretty amazed that, he wasn't asking for the earth, was he? His favourite player assigned jersey. I'm very surprised that they've said no. Perhaps they'll learn from that. But I was at year 2000 or 1999. I was at a Cubs game, sat in the bleachers, and they're pretty feisty fans in the bleachers there. As it was packed out. I think they were playing the White Sox actually there, and when a home run is hit, obviously into the crowd, they keep the home run. But traditionally at Wrigley Field in the bleachers, if it's hit by an opposing team, you're supposed to throw it back on the park just to show your disdain. And then I said, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And then one woman said to me, "says Yes, it's most of the fans, they bring a ball with them and they keep the one that they've caught and throw the one," which I thought was extremely amusing. But there's a lot to it. But I hadn't seen that story. But hopefully it was amicably.
I think I'm in a similar boat to you, David. a signed jersey seems a bit of a pittance for billion-dollar organizations like the Astros when to be refused. If the club know there's a negotiation, so there's obviously things they're not going to do. You're not going to get a season ticket. You're not going to go and have Justin Verlander take you out for dinner or whatever, you and your family out for dinner or whatever. But I would have thought a signed jersey is fairly standard fare. There's a little bit of me thinking of all the nonsense in football these days when kids have got the banners, the piece of cardboard saying so-and-so can I have your jersey? Because I think that's now reached the point of no return or the point of stupidity. And you see kids running on the pitch to go and get jerseys as well. And I think that needs to be stamped out. But I can't see a connection here. I think it's a very different type of situation. I'm impressed, as you say, with the lad for holding out.
It doesn't work like that in cricket because they play with the same ball.
Yeah.
I think there have been times when the balls be for 90 overs, so there's six balls in an over.
Yeah.
So they stick with the same ball. But I think
that's happening in cricket.
Yeah. So you have to, even if you catch the ball, you have to return the ball, and there's no two ways about it. And actually, I was reminded when I was at Headingley last night. It's changed a little bit since I was a lad, shall we say, and when I was at primary school. I've been 10 or 11 years old. I had a friend in our class whose house overlooked the back garden, overlooked the cricket ground, and at the wall they built a little standing area where they could watch the game. And it was fantastic going around to his house to see the cricket and just hang out with him. And one day I was there, he had quite a big garden, and I noticed there was a cricket ball in the garden. I said, Dave, look, there's a cricket ball there. He says, here. He says, oh, you can have it. I says, you're joking? Yeah, really? He says, oh yeah. He says, come and have a look at this. And he took me into the little garage. And they had a box full of them, So this was from sort of batting practice or training to get hit over, and they wouldn't be. They were all sort of the old balls, but yeah. So I had that ball for years. I don't think it survived the move, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's good. So you mentioned there, maybe just we last word before we wrap up. Success for Yorkshire in the world of golf at the weekend, as well as the UK's last two major champions now, both from Yorkshire as well. So what is it of that county of yours that keeps producing this sporting greatness, Dave?
Oh, well, in fairness, it's a pretty big county, isn't it? In terms of area and population. But yeah, I'd like to think there's a little bit extra in some of the sporting guys. Some of it, they've got some very good qualities, Yorkshire guys, and it probably works in golf, doesn't it? That sort of determination, and I don't know. Looking back, I'm not a knowledgeable golf fan like yourself, but thinking in terms of going back to the Ryder Cup, Howard Clark was pretty good.
Yeah.
Ryder Cup player, I think he was from Leeds. And they've got some pretty good courses in Leeds, I think. But yeah, Sheffield must be really proud of their two. Was it Matt Fitzgerald and what's the other guy? Willett. Yeah. And is it Willett?
Danny Willett, yeah.
Danny Willett, yeah. So it's great to see. I'm one of these guys. I always want the Yorkshire teams to do well, and I see he's a Sheffield United fan, like our old friend and colleague Marty Greenhorn.
Yeah.
And but it's I think you told me his caddies at Leeds United fans quite often wearing a Leeds shirt under his top.
Yeah, I think in the last major before this one would have been the PGA Championship, and Fitzpatrick did well there, but I think he tweeted something before the final round. They were watching, or maybe it must be the Saturday. They were watching. Well, it was the Sunday that was the last game of the season. They were watching the last Leeds game before they went out to practice to play the final round.
Really?
And Fitzpatrick said, "This better go well. I need Billy to be in good form this afternoon." So,
Yeah, I can imagine. So they would have been rooting for Leeds to survive, which they thankfully did. I think Sheffield United just missed out on promotion, didn't they, in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think Forest beat them in the playoff final, did they? Yeah, no, it'd been good to see.
I think you're right, yeah.
United there. So, no, well done to Matt Fitzpatrick. And the Open is coming up at St Andrews in 4 or 5 weeks, and I suspect he would fancy his chances.
Yeah.
The good ball striker, I think he'll fancy his chances there as well. He was putting well. And also, no, great.
Are you going
Another
up for
bat and ball game.
Yeah, are you going up for that?
Yeah, I've got tickets for a couple of the days, so I'll be up and I will report back. I don't think I'm going to go for the final weekend. You'll probably go the Thursday, Friday. You'll probably see more golf and enjoy it more on the TV maybe then, but I shouldn't say that too loud in case the RNA suddenly invite us along as international podcasters. But let's see how it goes. So, no, thanks for your contributions tonight, gents. It's always good catching up on the world of baseball, throwing a little bit of sport in there. We hope you've all enjoyed listening, folks, and we'll catch up with you soon.